Hey, so today we're going to talk about universal design and anti-bias teaching practices. Here is a little overview about what we're all going to talk about today. The first step is we're going to talk about universal design defined and kind of the concepts that are important to it, what it has been used for in the past, some examples of universal design in learning. And then we're going to dive into some anti-bias teaching practices, how anti-bias teaching practices have been implemented into the community so far and how they should continue to be. And then we're going to talk about how I would take the knowledge that I've learned here from universal design and anti-bias teaching practices and implement it into OTD 5400, which is Professional Skills and Techniques 1. And then I have my references here to share with you all. All right. So, Universal Design for Learning, also known as UDL, is a framework that can support the needs of all students, including students with disabilities, as well as cultural and linguistically diverse students. So, it can be used with all types of learners, all types of students, different learning personalities, different learning types, and from a different array of backgrounds, which is why it's so important to use Universal Design for Learning. Universal Design for Learning focuses on building supports rather than adapting the environment. So instead of removing the student from the environment they're in, Universal Design for Learning would just focus on adjusting some supports, putting in place some supports so that they can stay in the same environment, but they will just have a little bit of an easier time and some supports to help them. And it was originally derived from universal design of the environment. So when I think of this, I think of kind of when we went back into like health promotions and talking about with Dr. K's class, how we would go and we would look at how universal design in the environment will help people like get around with different diagnoses and disabilities. So I just think of it that way, but then in the concept of teaching and learning within the classroom. So, a few important concepts about universal design. It can be used to build supports into lesson goals, curriculum resources, instructional practices, and assessments. So, it's not just one thing where it encompasses, okay, this one assignment can be designed to be inclusive for all students. It can be all of it as a whole, tests, quizzes, the curriculum itself. Those universal design concepts can be implemented into all of the above for all different types of students. Additionally, it provides options that can meet the needs of a range of learners by building flexibility into curriculum and instruction. So, important thing to note is that teachers, OTs, they might have OTs that are working with teachers. Teachers might have a curriculum that they need to follow from the state. And in order to use universal design, we need to be flexible and we can implement some of these concepts into the curriculum and the instruction as long as they are following these basic guidelines that are met by the state. So, for an example, if somebody in kindergarten was told that they need to learn how to count to 10, but it doesn't specifically state why or like is how they need to be able to count to 10, we could do it electronically, we could do it with blocks in hand. It really just depends on the learner. So that's a way that you could build it into the curriculum. The UDL framework is organized around three principles of providing means of representation, expression, and action, and engagement. So, the concept is that UDL wants all types of students to be able to have freedom of expression, to be able to engage in all of the activities that they want to engage in. And they want to see action taken from the students to participate in these activities. And lastly, UDL framework is based on research supported practices and an understanding of how UDL can be applied to curriculum and instruction to support diverse learners is still emerging. So there is research that has kind of backed up universal design as a whole, but universal design for learning is something that's still emerging. All of the concepts and like what it is based upon, there's a lot of research on that, but there's still a little bit of a lack of research of how UDL is currently being implemented in schools and the surrounding environments. So as occupational therapists, we could play a role in kind of implementing these strategies into whatever setting, like school-based setting we go into. So these are some examples of how UDL has been used. So I kind of broke it down into technology and instructional methods. So for technology, some uses of UDL could be through digital text environments because this provides flexible options for students, and it also focuses on literacy related outcomes. So if a student has a visual impairment, the digital text could blow up the words into a bigger font, or it could create contrast with highlighting different colors. And this will help a student be able to read and process literacy related information. Also, digital text could offer read aloud options for students who are hearing impaired. So this would be a good option to use for UDL for many different types of students. Also, literacy is supported by ebooks and software programs. So, like I said, just for visually or hearing impaired, or even students that learn better on the computer. I know a lot of days kids are really into technology, so this could definitely be a good option. And these are just a few examples from the articles that I read, like two main methods. Technology was one of them for how UDL has been implemented. And then instructional methods. So the children's school curriculum was a general education curriculum that was designed for preschoolers who are at risk for school failure. And in this article, the authors provided examples of how each UDL principle was met through CSS lessons, and noted that the CSS also allowed teachers to make additional appropriate curriculum modifications and accommodations to meet individual students' needs. So this is just one example of how UDL was implemented into a curriculum for a children's school. There was also the digital backpack project, and this kind of encompassed a lot of different UDL principles, and they called it like the backpack project, and they implemented a bunch of different techniques into what they called like a toolbox for the kids. And then also learning through children's books. So a lot of schools have begun reading different books about children with different types of diagnoses or disabilities, and this kind of makes the students aware of students that might be different than them, and how they are both similar and alike, and how they might learn differently than they do. They might interact differently than you do, and how to be encompassing and inclusive of all of these different types of learners and students. And now we're going to talk about the use of universal design and pedagogy. So I know in our class a lot we talk about more learning for adults, but here this article focused on learning in kids. But I do think that this 3-block model could be transferred over to adults, so I felt like it was important to include. So the 3-block model meets the needs of diverse learners in common and inclusive settings through pedagogy that addresses the social, emotional, and belonging needs of students, alongside offering them authentic, multi-level instruction, and therefore endeavors to uphold the principles of whole school learning. So I thought that this was really important to incorporate even into adult classes, because we can sit here and we can learn and we can reciprocate facts and knowledge, but the social emotional needs through the level of education and instruction is something that is often known as the soft skills, and it's a little bit more difficult to learn. And it also focuses on conceptions of learning, processes of learning, and interdependence in learning, academic self-concept, and school engagement in ethnically and linguistically diverse students, Indigenous students, and students with and without disabilities. So I thought it really it did a really good job at encompassing all different types of students from all different types of backgrounds, and acknowledge that their school engagement, academic self-concept, and their interdependence in learning is extremely important. And the 3-block model kind of encompasses all of this together and helps create like the perfect environment for the student to learn in. And then anti-bias in schools. So, anti-bias education often begins at a young age, and it was developed from the need to identify and prevent as much as possible the harmful emotional and psychological impact on children from societal prejudice and bias. Anti-bias educators intentionally and proactively integrate the message into the daily life of their classroom that people of every racialized identity are valuable and deserve caring and fairness treatment. So it's really important for anti-bias strategies to start in teaching need to be implemented at a young age because this will carry over throughout lifetime. And it's really important for educators to remain anti-biased in their teaching practices. So there are 4 main goals of anti-bias teaching: identity, diversity, justice, and activism. And it's really important to encompass all of these goals throughout your teaching. And then here are a few strategies to implement anti-bias. You could use your school philosophy handbook enrollment materials to welcome all people. Make racial diversity visible in your learning environment and use teachable moments. So I think back to some of the difficult conversations that we've had in class and how we use these moments, and we use other people's experiences, and we use our philosophy to kind of make a diverse and welcoming background for everybody, and we want everyone to feel welcome and share and be inclusive in our environment. And then implementing OTD 5400, OT Skills and Techniques 1. So these are just a few ways that I would implement this into this course. So in the classroom, I would openly discuss bias with the occupational therapy community and discuss strategies to mitigate it. And I would have all students take a learning style quiz, similar to what we did at the beginning of this semester, and I would adapt my teaching style to these results. So I could either do more hands-on learning, I could do more videos, I could do more lecturing. Really just depends on the classroom and what the students need. Exams, on the practicals, I would include case studies that deal with bias. I feel like we do a lot of case studies in OT professional skills, and we don't always talk about difficult conversations in these practicals, and we need an array of different backgrounds for the clients that we're using in these case studies. I would provide both written and electronic exams to meet the needs of all learners. I know some people learn better or they take tests better if it can be handwritten and on paper, and some do it better on a computer. So both options would be good. And if needed, accommodations to the test for visually or hearing impaired would be provided. So like reading aloud or bigger text or contrast in the back. That would be important as an option to have. And then assignments, I would create an assignment where the students would create their ideal learning environment. I want to know, like, if you could design this class any way you wanted, how would you do so, and what's the best way for you to learn? Allow for online and hard copy assignments to be turned in, so students could turn them in person to the teacher, or they could turn them in online on campus like we've been doing. And then also increase group work to facilitate social interactions and discussion. So thinking back to the 3-block model, the importance of social emotional development and social interactions, and implementing more discussions in this class as we're learning about how to interact with clients. And then I thought this was a neat little picture. There's a YouTube video, and then this is also like what teachers have created, but it just kind of talks about like why you should use UDL. You know, it creates equal opportunity. It serves the needs of all learners. Some benefits of it. It enhances the curriculum. It removes barriers. Principles of it: expression, representation, engagement. Why it's important to incorporate it, how you could incorporate it, collaboration, lesson planning, and then some classroom examples, projects, environment flexibility, and group work, multisensory lessons, and then student-centered lessons, which I thought was really interesting. And then here are my references, and thank you for watching.